So welcome everyone this afternoon. We've been very pleased to be doing webinars on high quality instructional materials for mathematics throughout this week. And we have another guest speaker, Andrew Todd, and his team is joining us today. And they're going to be sharing Envisions 2020 with us. And all of these recordings that we have been doing will be posted on our instructional materials website at NDE. So you can look at those at a future date. So at this time, I'm going to mute and take myself off camera and turn it over to Andrew that's going to get us started. So enjoy the presentation and thank you for being here today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Deb. Can you nod if you can hear me okay? Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, thanks again for having us today. We're really excited to share, like Deb said, Envision 2020 with you. It's obviously brand new copyright, and we're going to talk about how this might be a great fit for you and your students in the whole state of Nebraska. I wanted to introduce our team today. You are going to be, if you type in some questions in the chat, you might get an answer from Todd or Devin, and they are your Nebraska account managers. And then myself there in the middle, I'm Andrew. I will be sharing the gift of Envision with you today. And I wanted to just say that we have this team here to support you and to really listen to your priorities and your needs and to help you meet those needs if we can. You'll also, if you continue to explore with Envision, you might meet another math specialist on our team, Brian, Christine, Jamie, Joy. We are all very excited to help you meet your needs, maybe through Envision. I wanted to be really clear about what Envision is if you're not familiar with it. Envision is a K through Algebra 2 or Integrated 3 program. So it goes from kindergarten all the way up through high school. And any pathway you need, it will meet those standards. Now, I know today's audience is mostly elementary, so we're going to be focusing, we like fractions as math people. We're going to be focusing on 6/13 of the story, kindergarten through 5th grade. But just keep in mind that it does go up through the continuum. It has that coherence and vertical alignment. But again, we will be focusing, excuse me, on Envision K5 2020. So at this time, I want to send out a quick poll, and I just want to get a sense of who's already familiar with Envision. It's been around for a long time, and you might have taught or maybe currently teaching with an older copyright, an older edition. So go ahead and select what you might be familiar with. You might have used a platform, SuccessNet, Realize, SuccessMaker. I just wanted to see. Good, looks like about 30% of us have voted. I'm just gonna keep it up for a few more seconds. About 35% of us have voted. I know since we can't be together in person, I figure let's try to make it interactive when we're all in our house cooped up during COVID. So cool, about half of us have voted. Just a few more seconds. I don't want to spend too much time. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the poll. Sorry if you couldn't figure out how to vote, but I'm gonna share the results. And it looks like about, of the 8 people that voted, it looks like about 63% are familiar with an older Envision copyright. About 25%, actually 2, use an older platform. And then about 63% are familiar with our current online platform, How Kids Learn Online, called Realize. That's good. And then 1 person is familiar with SuccessMaker. Okay, cool. I just wanted to get a sense of what we were familiar with. And those that didn't vote, you probably weren't familiar with any of them, right? That's about half of us. So more than half of us. So that's good because you're about to learn all the cool things that Envision can do to meet you and your students' needs. I wanted to start off by sharing some quotes from some current Envision teachers, just because we love working with them and supporting them and meeting the goal of success with students in learning math together. So one teacher said, I'm encouraging my students to embrace the digital tools and digital learning. After all, it's my job to help train them to be the best 21st century learners they can be. Another teacher said the search feature, she's talking about in Realize, the search feature allows me to quickly assign resources all in one place or platform to fit my students' needs. The playlist feature is a lifesaver. Even if you're familiar with Realize, the playlist feature is brand new, so you might not have seen it yet. We'll be talking about that today. And then a teacher that's piloting the program said the other teachers in my hallway want to know more about this program. So hopefully your curiosity is piqued with all this great feedback about the program. And I want to talk about the components that come with Envision should you adopt the program. So what you're seeing on my screen are the what the student editions look like. If you can still see me on my webcam, I'm holding up one right now. Notice the students write directly in it. It's very colorful and engaging and has the characters. I don't know if you can still see, but here's somebody's in the background. There's little avatars that kind of grow with the students. So the same avatars from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. One of the really compelling things about this program is it's very flexible to meet your needs. You can teach this 100% print. If you're teaching right now and your kids, and you're not one-to-one and your kids don't have devices at home, or you don't have one-to-one devices when you're back in the classroom, this program, 100% print. You can send home PDFs. Anything is available in print. This program is also 100% digital. So you can teach this purely distance learning if students have devices and connectivity at home. But you might be thinking of some students who might not have internet at home. We're really proud of Envision because it increases the access and equity to give students all students quality math materials. And those kids can access this even if they don't have Wi-Fi at home. All they need is a device. So they can download the chapter or the topic onto a device and still access the videos and the interactivity. And then once they bring that device back to a Wi-Fi connection, whether that's at a library or a McDonald's parking lot or back at school, then everything syncs up to our servers and the teacher can access what they've done. They can see what all the students have done on their dashboard without the kids having a Wi-Fi connection. So we're so excited to increase that access and equity for those students. So like I said, Envision is flexible and it's effective in this environment here on the left. Once we get back to a classroom, maybe you already are back in a classroom, but it's also effective in this distance learning environment like we are on right now in Zoom. And throughout our time together today, we'll take a look at how it's effective and how it makes math stick for those students. And the reason it does is because we have brought together a wide array of respected experts in the field of mathematics education. If any of you have ever been to an NCTM conference, this guy is probably familiar to you because he's the former president. I should put former there because recently Trina Wilkerson took over. But up till recently, he was the NCTM president, and we're super proud to have him as an author. One of his areas of expertise is equity and having students be the authors of their own ideas. Later today, you're going to hear from Zach Champagne. He's a current teacher and an author, and one of his areas of expertise is questioning, posing purposeful questions, and modeling with mathematics. And then you'll see some things from Juanita Copley today, and she is our primary expert, kindergarten, first, second graders. It's so important we capture the engagement of those students at that early age to set them up for success. Now, those authors we'll say that Envision is the best program out there. I'm going to say Envision's the best program out there. Todd and Devin will too, but you don't have to take our word for it because there are third parties out there like NebraskaMaterialsMatter.org that have said Envision Mathematics 2020 meets all expectations for quality curriculum materials. I wanted to put both of these screenshots up here. You're going to see Envision 2.0, which is the edition prior to Envision 2020, and it didn't meet expectations. So you'll see, I forgot to mention, I meant to mention, we are Savvis now. You know us as Pearson, same team. You know, you might have even recognized Todd or Devin, same team as before, just a new name. So this FKA stands for formerly known as Pearson. So on Nebraska Materials Matter, on Ed Reports, it didn't meet expectations. So we are really proud of the fact that with the new edition, this 2020 edition, our authors, our editorial team really dug deep, responded to the feedback of Ed Reports, of the evaluations, and made those changes, not only from feedback from Ed Reports, but also they took feedback from users of Envision 2.0, and then made it a much better program that meets those expectations from Nebraska Materials Matter. Not only does it meet the kind of where the standards are, but it also meets Nebraska key instructional shifts that focus the coherence and the rigor. In the teacher's edition, so if you can still see my webcam, I'm holding up the teacher's edition right here. In the teacher's edition, every topic or every chapter, every unit starts off telling the teacher how the topic attributes to focus, how it's coherent, what comes before, what comes ahead, where's the vertical alignment, are we building on models and pedagogy and strategies, and then the rigor. We want to make sure, you're going to hear this from every publisher you hear from, but is this program, does it attend to conceptual understanding, procedural skill and fluency, and application in the real world? So these pages make it really easy and efficient for the teacher to make sure they're hitting all of these areas and make sure they're attending to the key shifts in the standards for Nebraska. A little bit later on, Todd is going to send you the correlations that show that Envision 2020 is 100% in alignment to the Nebraska standards. We'll get a little bit deeper into that later on today, but I know you're probably pretty curious to know about how is Envision going to help me? How is Envision going to meet the needs of my students? I've got a diverse population of students, and I need to know, let's talk about the elephant in the room right now. Summer slide, COVID slide, our kids have more gaps this year than probably that we're used to with summer slide, right? Back in March, we had a really crazy circumstance to where maybe the instruction was a little bit different than the kids were accustomed to. So I want to get that elephant in the room out of the way, and I want to talk about how Envision can help you. We'll get to what a lesson looks like a little bit later, but I want to talk about, okay, my kids have gaps. How can Envision and Realize help me fill those gaps? Okay. The most effective, well, one of the ways that Envision can do that is every grade level has an online readiness test or a pencil and paper readiness test. Remember, this can be print, this can be digital. But if you assign that online readiness test to your students, so right now you're looking at a grade 3. If I assign, it's the beginning of year, 3rd grade, I assign this to my 3rd graders. What it's doing is it's assessing all of the 2nd grade standards. So it's trying to determine, are there prerequisite skills that my students have holes and gaps in, and how do I fill those? So if the students take that test, it's going to provide you on your teacher dashboard with a report of how your students did. Now, I hope they do better than this, right? But each one of these columns is a standard. And if I click on that standard, it's going to provide me with a streamlined resources that I can assign that relate to that standard. You're looking at 6th grade right now, but this would be this would actually be 2nd grade standards if I gave the 3rd grade test. If I gave the 5th grade test, what would it be? It'd be the 4th grade standards. And you can see right here, I can just easily assign whichever parts that I want to begin to fill those gaps with my students. Now, you're probably asking yourself, okay, that's great. That assesses the year prior's prerequisite skills. But what if I have a student who's more than a year behind? Or what if let's say I have a 4th grader who has some gaps in 2nd grade content or 2nd grade concepts or skills? Well, Savvis has a resource called Success Maker. Only one of you was familiar with that. But what it is, it's basically a tier 3 resource. And what it does is it finds the student's functional level. So the graph that you're looking at on your screen right now, I've got student A, B, C, and D. So 4 students who are starting their 4th grade year. So that's what this 4 is right here. Now, these 4 students are at different functional levels. This blue student is actually a whole grade level ahead, and the program identifies that student, okay? This green student is about 6 months ahead. Now, the yellow and the pink students, students A and B, they are student B, the yellow student's a little bit behind grade level. Student A is a whole grade level behind 4th grade, okay? Now, let's say a student's actually at a 1st grade level. This program will identify that. And from then, once it identifies where the student's functional level is, it calibrates with every question and it provides intervention based on what that individual student needs. So it provides the student with that individualized intervention program or acceleration program based on what they need. Success Maker, like I said, calibrates with every question. If you think about diagnostic assessments or screeners, right? You give the student an assessment, you have an hour, do your best, and what happens to the student? They get test anxiety, they might not perform. If they're having a bad day, they might perform lower than where they really are. And from there, the system will kind of pigeonhole them lower than what is going to be useful for them. With Success Maker, the kids don't know they're being diagnostically assessed. It's like a game. It's in a game environment, low stress. They perform accurately with a 98% success prediction rate. And it has direct connections to Envision, Nebraska standards, and the MAP growth standards. It's also available in Spanish and more than 60 languages. I'm just going to show you what it looks like for a student right now.
You figured it out. Which snack
so
did the greatest number of people choose? You figured it out. Did more people choose grapes or pears? You figured it out.
Okay, then they get badges as they become successful. Remember, it calibrates. So if they get it wrong,
add the tens to find the sum.
It's going to give them multiple chances.
Try again.
But eventually it's going to give them a tutorial. If they get frustrated,
here is the correct answer.
Learning objective away for a while and taking them onto a different strand. Like I said before, the program predicts with 98% accuracy what their functional level is, as well as how much time it's going to take, like how many sessions they need to get to a certain goal that you choose. In addition, Success Maker will also group the students by areas for growth. So let's say you have 3 kids who are struggling with adding on with a number line. It's going to group those students together. If they're not successful after multiple attempts in the program, it's going to give the teacher a targeted pencil and paper or PDF lesson that you can assign the students to get at the misconception as to why they're not being successful. So for those students who are multiple grade levels behind or ahead, Success Maker is a great solution to start filling in those gaps. Now, some of you, like I said, might not be one-to-one. Every student might not have a device. So what do we do for those students? Well, with Envision, there is a component called the Math Diagnosis and Intervention System, or we call it MDIS, MDIS. And it's basically a pencil and paper version of what you just saw. And we'll see more about how that works in a lesson a little bit later. So now that we've had that elephant out of the way, right? How is Envision going to help me fill those gaps? I know that's on the top of a lot of our heads right now. But now you're probably curious about, okay, what does the actual program look like? What does the lesson look like? So throughout the rest of our time together today, I'm going to be telling you how Envision helps students build conceptual understanding with that rigor, how it personalizes learning, how it helps teachers differentiate, and the instructional support, not just for teachers, but for parents and community members. It takes a village, especially in our times right now. But we're going to start off with, how does Envision build conceptual understanding? We hear from a lot of teachers that, before they adopt Envision, students struggle to remember what they learned from one year to the next. I'm spending too much time reteaching and filling in gaps. So how does Envision help students not have those gaps and make math stick? The secret sauce is Envision's lesson design. You're going to hear from everybody that, oh, we have conceptual understanding, and they do, right? But how is Envision unique? How is it, how can we position it to really make math stick for your students? And it's in that lesson design. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. You can start this tomorrow. It's this idea of starting with problem-based learning and then taking that and moving into visual learning. And then, did the kids get it? How do I differentiate? How do I extend if they got it too easily, or intervene if we need to reteach? So we're going to start. I'm going to give you just kind of a quick glimpse of a lesson. This is a 3rd grade lesson. I'm going to go back one screen, and this is the step 1 problem-based learning. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second to read the problem. Okay, so again, 3rd grade lesson. We're about to learn about the distributive property. The kids have never heard that term. I mean, they might have, but they haven't formally learned about the distributive property yet. Notice I have an array. It's a 5x4 array. Okay, now, 3rd grade, kids might, 5 times 4 might be a known fact. They might, oh yeah, that's, the 5s are usually, a lot of them know that, right? So, oh, that's 20. So we start off with something that allows them to take their prior knowledge and think about it in a new way and productively struggle. Productive struggle is huge with step 1. So I want you, I know we're, virtual, but I'm going to give you a second just to think. We all know 5 times 4, right? But how else, what's another strategy we can use looking at this image, at these counters and manipulatives, to figure that out? I'm just going to give you a few seconds to think about it. If we were together, maybe in the chat, you can say, figure out which array you used, what strategy you used. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance to think about your strategy. And you'll notice now on the right, that is what the page looks like in the student edition that I showed you earlier. Notice there's a lot of blank on that page. There's a lot of white space, and that's intentional. It's the power of a blank page. We want students to be able to think about it in multiple ways, multiple strategies, and also take notes on their classmates' strategies if their strategy made more sense to them. So if the students are digital, they can use what you're looking at right on the left, which is the draw pad. So all these screens, notice it'll read the problem to the students, right? Really helpful for especially our K2 babies, right? K1. And it's showing that this student thought about breaking it up into an array of 2x4 and 3x4, and then adding those two together. So even though they probably already knew what 5 times 4 was, they're thinking about it in a different way, okay? Now, that leads us, after the students all share their different strategies, or you as a teacher have selected which student work to show and sequenced in the right way. Maybe some students started with repeated addition or skip counting, and then some students broke it up. You might want to sequence that to really allow for that low floor, high ceiling, okay? All students have an access point with this problem-based learning. After they've thought about their prior knowledge in a new way, then we move into step 2. It's that secret sauce, that 1-2 punch. Then we get into the visual learning. So in this case, our next problem, we have Maria, and she has 7 rows of 4 chairs. Now, the 3rd grade teachers on this call know that 7 times 4 is not as widely known multiplication fact as 5 times 4, right? So even though they might have known 5 times 4, now they can use that strategy from before. They're about to learn about the distributive property, and they can apply it to a lesser known fact. Okay, so you can see how this program takes that prior knowledge, allows for productive struggle, and then comes in with the visual learning to kind of scaffold their understanding. And again, make sure every student has that access point. Now, if the students are in their books, they could also be following along with what we call the visual.
How can you break up a multiplication fact? Maria wants to set up 7 rows of 4 chairs for a meeting. She wants to know how many chairs are needed. Think about this question as you do the activity that comes next.
Notice that it's not just a video, it's interactive. Notice that it allows the students to make connections among representations. This is huge for our EL students, right? And it's also for all students because we have our concrete, our representational, and it bridges to the abstract. So you can see that this lesson design is very sound and very effective, and it makes math stick. Okay, that was just a very quick glimpse at the steps 1 and 2. You're probably wondering, what do the practice problems look like? Notice that the practice problems have that element of rigor. They have the conceptual understanding, the procedural fluency, and it has that balance in the independent practice as well. So you have application problems, you have math practices, math processes, right? Critique reasoning, vocabulary, higher order thinking. So it gives students that balance of application along with their conceptual understanding, and then the assessment practice to get them ready for those high stakes assessments. Now, if you have students who have a device and an internet connection, they can do what's called Practice Buddy, which is an online version of the problem set. It's so cool. This is what kindergarten, first, and second graders' experiences look like. They can use manipulatives, and then they get immediate feedback, whether it's right or wrong. And notice it reads every single problem to them. So helpful for our kindergarten, first graders, reads all the problems to them. So that's what every lesson has that. Now, for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders and beyond, this is what Practice Buddy looks like. So they still get immediate feedback. You can see the layout is a little bit more age developmentally appropriate, and those students have the choice to click on Question Help and view an example or get help every step of the way. So it has that scaffolded tutorial, which is so helpful for those students, especially if you can't be there, right? Or it's helpful for parents who are like, I never learned this way. What are these dots? And then they can click Question Help with their child and really be in the know for the strategies that we want our students using. Now, some of you might have students who won't take it upon themselves to click Question Help, and that's where adaptive practice comes in. Students get badges for success, but notice if I get things wrong, it automatically—
Carlos is going to learn with us too.
It automatically—
Hey everyone!
Brings up that tutorial.
We know that we can use array
right when I need it as a student. So we looked at step 1 and 2 and the problem set. The lesson ends for a student with what's called a quick check. It provides teachers with a formative assessment to be able to quickly see, did a student get it? Do they need intervention? Do they need an extension? It provides you with that formative data to adjust your instruction right when you need it. Okay, so that wraps up a lesson kind of from the student experience. Now I want to shift over to the teacher experience. What support is available for teachers to make this research-backed, proven effective lesson design available to you? This is Zach Champagne. I told you you'd be hearing from him again. He's a current teacher and he's one of the authors. I want you to listen to this short video of him explaining kind of how he preps for the start of a lesson.
One of my favorite components about the Teacher's Edition, particularly in the Solve and Share, is that I'm given guided questions before I start the lesson. And that helps me start to sort of think about, like, what are the good open-ended questions I'm going to ask to all students or students who are struggling to help keep them on track for where this problem needs to go. So for me, as after the students are done solving their problem in the Solve and Share, and they've had some time to reflect with their partners or groups about how others were thinking about it, I like to bring everybody back together as a whole group and to share selected student strategies as a way to lead us into what comes next with the Visual Learning Bridge. It's really laying the groundwork for what we're going to engage with in sort of that formal instruction phase during the Visual Learning Bridge.
So what he's talking about in the Teacher's Edition are these really great open-ended questions to get at what the student understands and not just give them the answer, but to guide them to explore and to engage in that productive struggle. These questions, you're going to see this little ETP bubble in the Teacher's Edition. Those stand for Effective Teaching Practices, and those come straight from NCTM's Principles to Actions. So I don't know about you, but as a teacher, I would feel really like sigh of relief, like, okay, you know, I know that this Teacher's Edition is giving me ideas for how to have an effective math classroom as, you know, as told by NCTM. Now, also in the Teacher's Edition or online, the teacher can project different ways of students showing the work. So if the students aren't really, like if they're timid at first and they're all doing it the same way, and you want to actually discuss different ways of doing it and make those strong connections for that conceptual understanding, you can project those different ways and have those discussions. Now, a really cool way that you can capture those student discussions and the different student work is a new feature called Scout. I'm going to play you this. This is a teacher in Florida and how she uses Scout.
One thing that I really liked using is a formative assessment tool known as Scout, which allows me to take photos of student work with, or even videos with my cell phone, and it links it within the website, and then we can get it up on the big screen immediately. So there aren't delays. It allows our lesson to keep flowing smoothly and keeps that momentum going of engagement.
So you can see it's really cool already. She uses it to project student work on the screen so everyone can discuss it. You could do the same thing virtually as well. But I'm going to slide over here to my browser. I'm on Realize, and this is what Scout looks like in, you know, live. So it's that same lesson on distributive property where we were looking at the blue counters, right? So it's lesson 3-1, and I'm observing students at work. So if I click View Details, it gives me, as the teacher, an idea of what to look for and how to select and sequence when students share. So how do students represent the larger array? Do students break the larger array into 2 arrays in different ways? So that's what I'm looking out for as I'm eavesdropping or as I'm reviewing student work. Notice that this student, they actually kind of looked at it at first in half, and then maybe looked at it in different quadrants. So maybe divided it into 4, or, you know, said 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. So that's one way. So I could go over here and I could say, okay, this student thought about it in quadrants, and I can make a note right there. Okay, that'll help me go back, have an artifact for the student work. If I click on this student, this is from a professional development, so you're about to see a teacher, but you can also take and upload videos of student conversations or students using manipulatives as well.
I actually split it 4 ways.
Okay.
So the first time I just split it down the middle, and so I have 2 arrays that are 2 times 5, so I have 10 and 10. And then
okay, so you saw that teacher or that person thought about it 2 arrays of 10 and 10. So it's a great way to capture students' thinking, great for parent conferences, even great for absent students who weren't able to hear their peers' explanations. So again, that's called Scout, and it's a great way to just keep that observational assessment organized. Really excited about that, allowing teachers to do that. Now, I want to talk about how the Teacher's Edition, how the program supports our English language learners. Now, math is a foreign language to all students at some point, right? So these are great strategies, even if you don't have any, technical ELL students. But every single lesson provides ideas for how to help those ELL students acquire that language in the setting of the math lesson. Now, something brand new to Envision, we took the feedback from people who used it, and there is now a language support handbook. If you're looking at my webcam, you can see it right now. This is huge. This is something to really be excited about, because if you know anything about ELL students or students in general, you know that every single day, they need to be not only listening to you and reading and writing, but also speaking. They need to have that productive language as well as receptive and written and oral. They need to be having all of that. And then finally in math, they need to be representing, making connections between representations. So with Envision, it provides the teacher with ideas to help plan to make sure students are hitting these different modalities: reading, listening, writing, speaking, representing. So you can see right here, I took the ones from this distributive property lesson. So it's got ideas. So here we've got reading and listening. Here we've got these three modalities: think, pair, share. And then every lesson also provides the student with a self-assessment, not just with the math goal, but also with the language goal. Can I explain ways to repeat methods? Can I explain to another student? So these really are wonderfully aligned to the English language proficiency standards from the Nebraska English Learner programs, right? So receptive, productive, interactive. And also the grade level English language proficiency standards, because every lesson provides you not only with the math objective, but also the language objective. So it's really great for all students in class to be able to acquire that mathematical language and the English language as they're learning math. So you kind of saw how Envision maybe stands out in, like I said, everybody's got conceptual understanding in their program, but you saw, with that proven lesson design and with that teacher support, how it helps kids build conceptual understanding. And why is conceptual understanding important? Because it makes math stick from lesson to lesson, year to year. Now I want to talk about how Envision and Realize help you personalize that learning for those students. And that really falls under the category of step 3 of the lesson, which is assess and differentiate. Remember, I told you every lesson ended with a formative assessment, whether on paper or online, that gives you a snapshot of how students grasp that lesson's concepts or skills. If the students take that online, it's going to give the teacher an immediate report, and it's going to group the students based on a breaking point that the teacher chooses. By default, it's 70%, but I could change that to 80 or 90 or 60 or 50. And if I click the button, it's going to arrange the students below that breaking point and above. And then you can see I can assign resources to the different groups at the click of a button. It saves you so much time. And it's really easy to differentiate digitally, especially in a distance learning environment. Every single lesson also provides the teacher with an intervention activity. This is not just a worksheet. It's designed for small group, maybe the horseshoe table when you're in person again, and it's a hands-on activity that comes at the idea from a different approach than the main lesson. There are different strategy, different materials. If the students didn't get it the first time, you don't just repeat it or maybe go to the prior grade level. They need it in a different delivery method. So every lesson provides the teacher with that intervention activity and a reteach to build understanding workshop to do with, tier 2 teacher support. So we really want to make sure that no students fall through the cracks. In addition to that intervention activity, Every teacher gets a center kit. It's a little wall hanging chart that you see our third grade friends over on the left are picking out their differentiation activities from. And this is a way, I know that we're, as elementary teachers, we're always looking for ways for cross-curricular connections. And Envision makes it easy for you to incorporate other subjects into math. So for example, STEM activities. Some lessons have STEM activities that go along with the math content that the students are learning. There's also reading that you can incorporate. Reading mats are leveled. So on the front of the reading mat is on level, and on the back of the reading mat is below level readers. So sometimes you have kids who are really strong in math who need more support in reading, and this is great for those students to bring in that cross-curricular connection. Other differentiation options include online fluency games, as well as digital math tools, kind of like digital manipulatives. So students can really get that conceptual understanding and do really hands-on activities where they understand the math and make connections to the fluency. So you can see it's not just a workbook. It's not just, you know, let's work through every page, boring, boring, boring. There's lots of stuff to capture students' interest and engagement. Now, speaking of engagement and interest, this is a brand new feature of Envision 2020, which is called Pick a Project. And what this does is it allows for student choice, especially right now when we think of culturally responsive instruction. Student choice is so important because it allows students to pick something that they can apply their culture or their background to, and it gets them excited about math. So in this case, you see there's one about recipes, here's one about code breaking during a war, here's one about produce and the farmer's market, and it's all related to the math that they're learning. In addition to the project that they get to pick, the projects have differing contexts, modalities, and final products like a skit or a diorama or a poster, right? So it allows students to really incorporate their interests into math. Here's our third grade friends again, experiencing Pick a Project for the first time.
Let's do the first one. Yeah, okay. So it says Project Make a Basketball Data Display. Yeah, so it says how many points can you score? I'm not really good at basketball because it's like a data chart. Yeah, so it says, so the second one says draw a shell array. Do you like, well that would be like an array like we've done. Like math, like, and then, I really want to do the last one. Wait, you can choose one and I can choose one. We get our own projects.
Okay, that's so cute. But yeah, they're super excited about their projects. And then for the teacher, it tells you what the final products are, what the modality is, and how to organize it maybe as a review for a final topic test or assessment. And you can review in a very student-centered, hands-on way. Last but not least, in our differentiation toolkit, there are the routines for our primary kiddos. These routines, if you heard of number talks, these are Envision's number talks. So it tells you like when is appropriate for routines, and it really helps our primary students become mathematically proficient and flexible, and really helps their number sense. So you're looking at a kindergarten page for counting and cardinality routines. And then now this is a first or second grade for number and operation. So it really helps, like I said, with the students' number sense in a very engaging and social way. Kids love it. All right, so again, recapping the lesson structure. Again, research-backed, proven efficacy. Step 1, problem-based learning. Step 2, visual learning. And then assess and differentiate. Again, you could do this tomorrow. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Now, for those of you that like to mix it up, so you're on the screen now, you're looking at a second grade, 5-1, 5-2, 5-7. Those all have that 3-step lesson design. But sometimes you're going to get a 3-act math lesson. And several of you might have already heard of 3-act math. With Envision, it's built into the scope and sequence, and it's just kind of a fun way to mix up the lessons. So if you're not familiar with it, I want you to view it through the idea of student agency, students taking ownership of their learning. And this is Dr. Berry. It's just a really quick video of him explaining that student agency. And when we go through a 3-act math lesson, I'd like you to view it through that lens.
Too often in classroom, the author of ideas are the curriculum themselves and the teacher, him or herself. And so the idea is that how do we create spaces and opportunities for students to author ideas? And those ideas can be connected to mathematics, but they also can be connected to the resources they bring to their classroom. And this is how we're being responsive to the ideas and the knowledge base that students bring to learning.
Okay, so let's take a look at how 3-act math helps students bring their knowledge base and their own ideas to learning. Act 1 hooks the students. Act 2, they create a model that models their real world and their real world problem. And Act 3, they compare their solution to the real world solution. So let's experience a really quick abbreviated 3-act math lesson. This is a 2nd grade lesson on subtraction. And as you watch this video, I'd like you to just think about what you notice or what you wonder about this video. Okay, so at this point, you'd ask the kids, what did you notice? What did you wonder? Share, and you're gonna let them share whatever they want. It could be, you know, I don't know how to do laundry. He's gotta do his own laundry, or, you know, that's a cool house. I wish I had stairs, you know, whatever. But you're guiding them to the main question. And in this case, the teacher's edition lets us know that the main question is, how many socks did he drop? Then you're gonna ask the students, what do you need to know? What information do we need to know to be able to answer that main question? And they're going to tell you, well, how many were there to begin with, and how many, you know, and so they're going to give you that. So right away, you can tell this is very student-centered, and students are the authors of their own ideas. Then they're ready for Act 2, and only after they've told you what information that you need do you reveal. So you tell them, they've probably already told you, we need to know how many socks were in the dryer. We tell them 58. And then notice it's very visual, very low floor, high ceiling, accessible for ELL students, for any students, right? So like, okay, I see pairs here, so they can use like double strategies, they can use counting by twos, they can use arrays, right? And then they notice these down here. So at this point, you let them get into their groups and use a model, draw a picture, make a table, a number line, whatever model that they choose. And let them go to work. Let their creativity flow. Let them be the authors of their own ideas. Then once they have their model and their answer, you choose some to share, right? And then we ask them to compare their answer to Act 3, which is the solution. Okay, so you can see this is very engaging, very visual. The kids have a stake in their learning, and they get really into it. If you've never taught one, or if you've never seen one taught, it gives me goosebumps every time. And when I talk to teachers afterwards, they're like, did you see like that group that was really participating? They're the ones that historically I have trouble getting to participate in math. So again, it's that low floor, high ceiling. Math is accessible. And we teach kids to not only be better problem solvers this way, but problem posers. So they get a passion for math and what it can do in real life. Now, like I said, there's tons, if you just Google 3-Act Math, there's tons out there that you can use. So why is Envision useful? Well, it's useful because, like I showed earlier, it's embedded right where the students, where it's appropriate in the scope and sequence for what the students are learning. But also in the Teacher's Edition, it provides the teacher with the questions to ask, with the teacher prompts to really make sure you're going through that modeling cycle, make sure the students are the ones leading, and making sure that they are going through that problem-solving process. So I hope you're really excited about maybe trying it in your classroom, and we'll give you some resources to do that. Now, after we've done this lesson structure, the 3-Act Math, you know, we have to assess, right? I'm going to talk really quickly about it because I know we're 10 minutes to the hour, but I wanted to point out that assessment is very flexible. You can do pencil and paper like you see on the left. Those are editable. Those are downloadable as Word documents. Or you can assign any assessment online to get immediate feedback and that data. You'll notice these are next generation assessment questions to prepare students for high stakes assessments. I know the ACT now uses this same platform. So it gets students ready for formats of those high stakes assessments. Now, if students need support, if they need intervention on those assessments, you remember earlier I talked about that math diagnosis and intervention system. Teachers are going to get that intervention system, and in the Teacher's Edition, it provides the teacher with a very targeted item analysis. So if I have a student that misses question 5 on a test at depth of knowledge 3, then I know I can intervene with B54. That data, we looked at it a little bit before, but it provides the teacher with standards reports, item analysis, how long it took students on different assignments, how students answered. So it gives you any data you can think of, and that data is exportable to a CSV or an Excel file in case you need to upload it, like work your magic and upload it into your gradebook or a tracking progress monitoring program, so that is exportable. Now I want to talk, you know, in our little bit of time we have left, I want to talk about how Envision is going to work perfectly for the state of Nebraska. If you've ever looked at the Nebraska Bridge document, you'll see that kindergarten, first and second grade, you know, kind of the national stuff out there is going to be fine, right? EdReports includes 100%. Implement selected materials as intended. 4th grade is the same way. You know, everything national is going to fit. But if we look at 3rd grade, there's one Nebraska standard that isn't in a lot of national materials. Same with 5th grade, which we'll go to here in a second. But notice that Envision 3rd grade, it's this zero property and identity property of multiplication. Envision in 3rd grade does have a lesson on that, and it really gets at the heart of the standard where the students have to use symbols and words to explain. So I'm showing you right now, there's the vocabulary, and then this gets at the concept using manipulatives, using representations of what those identity properties actually mean, and connecting it to the identity property of addition. So it really helps kids make those connections and makes math stick. Now, those of you that are involved in educating our 5th graders, there is a standard, identify faces, edges, and vertices of rectangular prisms, that is not in a lot of national programs. But if you look at our correlations document, you'll see, hey, here's this Nebraska standard, and it's telling me this is covered in the MDIS lesson I1 and I11. And here's where it is. Intervention lesson I11 provides the teacher materials with it. I want to show you how easy this is to really tailor to fit your needs. So if I go into 5th grade, and I go down into the math diagnosis and intervention system, what I can do is I can find that lesson. So it says I11, I can go to booklet I, find that, and I can add it to whatever lesson I'm currently teaching with what's called a playlist. You heard that teacher quote. So here we go, solids and nets, edges. I'm gonna add that to a playlist. I'm gonna create that playlist and call this, solid nets, or I can even call it that Nebraska standard. So I can create that playlist, and then I can even search. Let's say I do solids and nets, and it searches the entire program for solids and nets to where I can add other things to my playlist. So I can really tailor that playlist. So notice, oh, there it is, solids and nets. There's another one. But if I click this button right here, see results from OpenEd, it pulls up things from outside of Envision that we like to use as teachers, like Khan Academy, OpenEd. So right here, what if I wanted to add nets and 3D objects? I could just assign that all in one platform and just create that playlist to really fit my and my students' needs. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, some of that stuff is just PDFs. How do kids, if they don't have a printer and a camera and an email, how do they do it? Well, something that we're really excited about is called PDF Kit, and it allows students to use tools to mark up PDFs, type, color, draw, and submit that to the teacher, all in the Realize platform. So what support do we offer teachers? And I've got 5 minutes left. This will be really quick. Savvis, formerly Pearson, has really beefed up parent support in the last couple months. And that's because parents right now are more involved in the kids' education than ever, right? We have parents that have never taught math before having to figure out how to teach it. So there have been things like parent user guides on Realize, and also there's an app called Bounce Pages that allows parents to use their phone or tablet to scan the pages of the student book, and the tutorial video will pop up based on that page. So every single lesson has 2 scannable pages. So that's 2 videos per lesson that parents have access to, and it allows them to have those great conversations with their kids. It allows them to help you too. Again, focus, coherence, rigor. It's like a mini methods course for teachers. But in addition to that, there is a PD video.
Although every multiplication fact can be found using repeated addition.
I'm going to repeat that. Every lesson has a 2-minute PD video that explains what the essential question is and also common misconceptions that students tend to have about that lesson. So you can feel very supported, especially let's say you haven't taught 3rd grade ever, and that really gives you an idea of what to listen for, what to look for. In addition, the program is compatible with Google Translate. So if you have a new student from, let's say, Vietnam, it can translate it into Vietnamese for them. Really quickly, professional growth. We are not just, Todd and Devin and I are not just going to drop a bunch of boxes off and leave you for 6 years. We want to make sure that you are supported, that your students are successful. So there's a website called My Savvis Training. It's single sign-on with Realize, and it provides you with on-demand tutorial implementation videos, but it also allows you to chat or email with a specialist like me, or sign up for a free webinar whenever you need it, during your PLC, at home, whatever. And then of course we offer workshops, face-to-face workshops when we all, when that's available again to us in our current situation. But Savvis is equipped to really support you in whatever your professional development journey is. So just a quick recap. With Envision, kids can see the math, teachers can see the results, and you saw all 3 of these areas today. I want to reiterate the support that you have in the Savvis team. If you'd like to take a picture of this contact information, I'm going to leave it up for a little bit. And at this time, I'd like, if Todd were here in person, he'd be giving out popcorn balls to everybody, but we're virtual here. So we're going to open it up for questions. Hopefully they've been chatting responses, but I will be quiet now, and then I'll give you a demo account. Any questions there? Let me check the chat. Okay, got some chats. Oh, looks like Todd's got the correlations in the chat. Looks like you have to copy and it's a long URL, so you have to copy and paste that. Any other questions? Ooh, I like Anika did her 2 times 5 and 2 times 5. Okay, while I'm waiting for any more questions, I will put up your demo account that you can go to SavvisRealize.com and click sign in and use this username and password. I'd take a picture on your phone or write it down, and you can explore kindergarten all the way through Algebra 2. And if there are no last questions, I want to thank you for your attention. And we are so excited at the prospect of partnering with you as you consider a journey learning mathematics with Envision. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew and team, for sharing Envisions with our team today. And I know there were several questions in the chat, and Todd was very active in responding to them. And we'll have this broadcast up on our page so that they can continue to contact you with any questions. And so I thank you for your day, and everyone for all your efforts out there to supporting math in Nebraska. And I hope you have a good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.